G'day, and welcome to my first ever review. And today we're going to be looking at the DC Comics New 52 sort of collected edition of Legion of Superheroes. Now, don't you know that something's just going to be fantastic when you see that someone who is paid to write something good about this, in this case IGN, simply just writes for their comment to sell this book to everyone else who might be thinking of picking it up. A well-written team book. Wow. This is going to be fun. So, the New 52 was all about reinventing various franchises and comics and trying to bring them to a newer market. Legion of Superheroes is not one of the most popular of titles to begin with. It's set in the 31st century, and none of the mainstay DC characters are usually there, except when they time travel, and they bring people like Superman mostly into the future to help them fight crime. Now, the first thing that Legion of Superheroes Hostile World, or we'll just call it Legion of Superheroes Volume 1, suffers from is so many introductions of characters. Now, if you're going into this book, because it's described on the front cover, may I add, the most approachable jumping on point for the Legion of Superheroes that you'll get. Now, for starters, Legion of Superheroes is crazy to try and get into. I've been reading it for many years, and even now they'll introduce a couple of concepts that will just be completely weird for me to get over. But this book is not the greatest way to get into Legion of Superheroes by far. For example, in the first issue alone, they introduce 15 characters, if you include like Renegade and whatnot, but 15! And they're just like, here's someone for like maybe 2 panels. And then they'll just say, oh yeah, that's it. And that's just the first issue. They introduce more characters, and they'll just say, this is their name, and this is what they can do. And that's it. Oh, I mean, while I'm not expecting them to write an entire issue just dedicated to each character's backstory, I mean, if you just tell me, oh, this is, for example, Chameleon Boy, he can change. He's from the planet wherever. That's not really interesting. That makes him forgettable. And because most of the characters in this book only have one power, which I'm not saying is bad, they'll just be there whenever they need it, whenever the plot demands it, essentially. Now, this is where the gripes of this book start coming in. They're just simple overload of information for someone just trying to get started in the New 52. Of course, if you're a veteran of comics and you pick it up, it'll be like, oh, normal. But for someone that's just been like, oh, here are the like Dominators and here are the Daxamites, and they'll just throw these concepts and they just don't explain them to the new viewer. They just expect you to know. And I particularly didn't like it. And well, even though I knew what they were, I could see, like, for example, I lent this to a friend of mine, and they said that they were very confused through the entire thing. So, obviously it doesn't do its job well enough in that regard. Like, a great example. Here's a little speech about Earthman, also known as Superhero Hitler. But it doesn't explain why they're talking about him. It doesn't explain why they're saying these phrases about him. It just expects you to know. They don't give any backstory to any of the newcomers of Legion of Superheroes. And if the New 52 was about bringing in new fans to the series, they would have done a little bit more care for that. But it just really shows that they didn't put much thought into it, and it was more just added to the New 52 instead of reinvented. And there's just other things that really... You know what? in order to really understand why I have so many gripes about this, first we need to talk about Flashpoint. I mean, why even are the events in this book taking place? I mean, apart from DC to garner money, of course. Let's take a moment to talk about Flashpoint, or as I like to call it, fucking Flashpoint. Yeah, fuck you, Barry Allen. You selfish prick. So basically the gist of Flashpoint is Barry Allen, who is the second Flash, changed time, and that is why we have the New 52, the reboot. Of course, that's just what DC is saying so that they could bring in new fans, but hey, it was an interesting concept, and DC loves to reboot its stuff and retcon entire superheroes and continuities, so you know what, why is Flashpoint any different? So my main gripe with this comic is, it clearly shows that the people in the comic are aware of Flashpoint, or the event Flashpoint. For example, here is Brainiac telling everybody that they can't travel back through time because of Flashpoint. And that just got me thinking, why is anything in this comic taking place? Let me give you a little example. So let's say for a moment that this represents the timeline of the DC universe, with this being where all the other New 52 are set, and this being where the Legion of Superheroes are set, the 31st century. Now, let's just take a moment to think about time and really basic shit, because I'm really sure that DC has no idea what they were doing with this comic. Right, so let's say that something were to occur like here in time. Now, if something was to occur there, this wouldn't occur because it would create an entirely new timeline. One that is completely different from that. Sure, you would end up going to the 31st century still, but you wouldn't have the same result as the first one. So why the fuck then, if Flashpoint occurs here, which changes the lives of hundreds of characters, which inadvertently changes thousands of events, do we still get to the same fucking place in time with the same characters and nothing changed whatsoever? There is literally nothing changed. It is as if they continued on the main continuity. They didn't even need to say the New 52. They just needed to say Legion of Superheroes, issue whatever, and just continue the numbering, because nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is them just saying, oh wow, we can't travel back in time because of Flashpoint. And that is a whole other thing in itself. So what I think happened was, they finished Flashpoint, and they're like, this is going to change everything. And so then after they did that, they were all like, oh, the New 52 is coming out, and we've announced the Legion of Superheroes for it. And then one dude was just like, how the fuck are we going to do that? And then the same guy was just like, fuck it, who cares, right? Who cares about any form of continuity? Because fuck you, readers. And what does Flashpoint really bring to the Legion of Superheroes? I mean, we've established already that nothing has changed except for the fact that they know about Flashpoint. Oh wait, how are they raising the stakes because of Flashpoint? Oh, they can't travel through time now, so they can't have Superman help them anymore. That actually might be an interesting premise, because the Legion of Superheroes usually got other heroes to help them out when they had a massive conundrum. Now, however, that means nothing. Now let me explain to you why. Daxamites. Now, unlike the comic book, I'm going to actually explain what a Daxamite is to anyone who would pick up the book for the first time, because it is a reboot and they're trying to explain things to new readers. Now, what is a Daxamite? Superman. Superman is a Daxamite. Well, no, Superman is Kryptonian. But a Daxamite, for all intents and purposes, have the exact same abilities as Superman. Except, instead of being weak to kryptonite, they're weak to lead. So we have an entire race of Supermen still alive. And the only thing stopping them is their weakness to lead. Now, this comic features two Daxamites prominently in the first few issues. And that's Mon-El and Renegade. Oh. And let me explain. They both are immune to lead. Okay, so now we've established that the creators didn't give a fuck about this comic. Let's continue with the rest of it and see how it pans out. Let's talk about the art. The art is actually really beautifully drawn, and it's really enticing and great to look at. And some of the facial expressions especially, really spot on. And my favorite character from the comic is probably Brainiac, because of how he's been written. The writing, again, for the most part in this comic, is decent. While nothing is actually happening at the moment, that is the comic book trend. I'm sure it's all building up to something, but once again, this is all speculation. For some reason, I don't actually know why, they changed artists for one issue and you can really notice it, and nothing happens in that issue. I don't even know why it's there. Maybe the artist was sick, but it seems really out of place. And they're building up something with the story, but they keep having characters and I just really don't care about it. So, because this is getting too long already, Legion of Superheroes, give it a miss. It might get better in the future, but it is not a jumping on point. For people that have actually read Legion of Superheroes and they know a bit about the backstory, even I wouldn't really recommend picking it up because it's just really basic and the writing isn't... Well, it's decent, it's not really the level that comics are supposed to have in this day and age. And while it may get better, it's just not there yet. So while it may get better in the future, until then we'll just have to wait. This was my first review. If you liked it, great. If you didn't, not great. But either way, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.